On November the 27th of 2020, 26-year-old Washington woman Sativa Transui and her partner, 31-year-old Taylor Allen, were on holiday in Mexico for Thanksgiving. They were staying at the all-inclusive Al Ritmo resort in Cancun. Previous conversations between the woman and her friends indicated that she believed her boyfriend had an entirely different personality whenever they consumed alcohol. It was allegedly marked by violent behavior, and Transui would reportedly refer to Allen's drunken alter ego as the Beast. On November the 26th, she texted friends to say that by 1 p.m. she and her partner were already 7 shots and 2 pina coladas deep. A few hours later, a flurry of messages from Transui to her younger sister indicated that she needed stitches after she and Allen had gotten into a violent argument. The messages then abruptly stopped, prompting friends and family to become concerned and alert Mexican authorities. Transui's mother received a call from the consulate the following day and was informed that cleaning staff at the hotel had found her daughter dead in her room. The authorities reported she'd been beaten to a bloody pulp. Investigators believed that Allen had beaten his girlfriend to death at some point in the night and later released a photo of him after he'd been taken into custody still wearing his hotel bathrobe. As of the latest reports on the matter, Allen had been charged with murder and was taken to a Mexican prison while awaiting a court date. Number 7. Ron and Diane Hughes. 65-year-old Ron Hughes and his wife, 57-year-old Diane, were visiting Queensland, Australia in January of 2023. The British couple who'd gotten married the year before went on a sightseeing helicopter tour on January the 2nd in Main Beach. Ron and Diane, along with 4 other passengers, were in a Eurocopter EC-130, piloted by Ash Jenkinson, aged 40. As the latter was taking off from a sandbank, another helicopter of the same model and working for the same tour was coming in to land. Seconds after Jenkinson had taken off, the rotor of his helicopter struck the cockpit of the other aircraft. The impact was devastating for Jenkinson's helicopter, which crashed and became a mangled wreck. Dozens of bystanders rushed in to help the casualties. Ron and Diane died in the crash along with fellow passenger Vanessa Tadros, aged 36, and Jenkinson. The second aircraft landed upright on the sandbank and the people on board only suffered minor injuries. The preliminary findings of an investigation into the crash indicated that the main factors had been visibility and miscommunication between the 2 pilots. Number 6. John and Susan Cooper. UK couple John and Susan Cooper were on holiday to Egypt in August of 2018 and staying at the Red Sea resort of Hurghada. On August the 20th, the couple complained of an acetone-like smell upon returning to their room at the Steigenberger Aqua Magic Hotel. They called housekeeping 3 times. A German tourist believed to have been staying in the room next to theirs had checked in and immediately checked out because of the smell. John and Susan didn't change their accommodation and fell gravely ill on August the 21st. John died in the room, and a medical examination would later reveal that he'd suffered a sharp drop in blood pressure, which had caused his heart to stop abruptly. Hours later, Susan suddenly fainted and was transferred to the Al Asil Hospital. She died in the ambulance en route to the medical facility, where staff was reported to have tried to restart her heart for 10 minutes. Evidence indicated that around the time of the couple's passing, the room next to theirs had been fumigated. 3 years from the incident, the couple's daughter Kelly still had no conclusive answers for what had happened to them. John and Susan were reported as being in perfect health prior to the trip. Local authorities determined that their deaths had been caused by the E. coli bacteria, although a separate Home Office post-mortem had proved inconclusive. Preliminary reports from experts at Public Health England suggested that neither radiation, natural causes, carbon monoxide, nor food poisoning had contributed to the couple's deaths, and that they'd likely been exposed to an infectious biological agent or toxic chemicals in the years since the incident. The British government made over a dozen attempts to obtain the relevant information from Egyptian officials, including meetings with the country's ministers of foreign affairs and tourism. Nevertheless, as of the latest information available on the matter, the authorities hadn't released John and Susan's post-mortem results or the test results from the hotel room. Number 5. Jesse Ropos. On January the 13th of 2023, after a 10-day vacation in Puerto Aventuras, Mexico, Canadian tourist Jesse Ramos was due to return to Winnipeg with his wife, Stacy. The couple, who'd been married for 8 years and had 3 children together, regarded the trip as their long-awaited honeymoon. Approximately 12 hours before their scheduled flight back to Canada, Jesse remained at the bar while his partner went back to their room at the Catalonia Yucatan Beach Hotel. A few hours later, staff woke Stacy up and took her to the lobby. She saw that the area had been cordoned off by the police and was told that her husband was dead. Stacy would later remember running towards Jesse's lifeless body and demanding that he get up. An investigation revealed that Jesse had gotten into a fight with another hotel guest while at the bar. He was consequently removed by 2 hotel workers. One of them, a security guard, immobilized Jesse while the other, a bar supervisor, placed him in a chokehold. The duo only released Jesse upon realizing he was unconscious. A post-mortem established asphyxiation as the man's cause of death. Information from May of 2023 indicated that the local authorities had announced they were pursuing qualified murder charges against the workers, both of whom were reported as being in their 30s. They each risked a maximum of 50 years in prison and were scheduled to appear in court on June the 16th of 2023. Number 4. Jamie and Mary Carson. In May of 2023, newlyweds Jamie and Mary Carson were on a trip to Mallorca and staying at a rural property in Cala Mesquida in the island's northeast. The couple, based in Edinburgh, Scotland, were due to meet friends for a boating trip but failed to show up. Emergency services were called to their home where they found 40-year-old Jamie dead and 39-year-old Mary lying next to him on the bed unconscious. As of mid-May, Mary was reported as being in serious condition in the ICU of Manacor Hospital. A post-mortem examination on Jamie revealed that he died from carbon monoxide poisoning, with the leak having occurred from a faulty refrigerator. The couple were described by friends as a match made in heaven. They'd been on their second honeymoon on the island. Roughly 2 weeks prior, they'd celebrated a second wedding ceremony back in Edinburgh with their loved ones. Number 3. Ronnie Peel. In late May of 2023, Ronnie Peel and his partner, Jenny Lynn Michelle Blosser, were on a Carnival Magic cruise ship traveling roughly 180 miles off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida. Blosser would report that it was her partner's first cruise and that he enjoyed being able to drink, gamble, and socialize, describing the man as the life of the party. CCTV would show 35-year-old Peel leaning over the railing of his cabin's balcony at around 4 a.m. on May the 29th. Moments later, he went overboard. The Coast Guard was notified later in the afternoon and launched a search in the water and in the air. After covering over 5,000 square miles using HC-130 Hercules planes, a HC-144 plane, and a ship, the Coast Guard suspended the search on June the 1st and offered their condolences to Peel's family. The Carnival Care team was reported to have provided care for Blosser as the ship reached its final destination of Norfolk in Virginia, the woman's home state. Number 2. Tristan and Vestal. A married couple from Lewisham, London, were on a getaway to the island of Mykonos, Greece. In the summer of 2016, the couple, only identified as Tristan and Vestal, went out to a popular gay bar on July the 19th. On their way back, 42-year-old Tristan would remember walking up a hill and then turning around to realize that Vestal wasn't with him. He saw him pinned against some railings by someone he didn't know. As Tristan later reported, he told his partner that they needed to go before blacking out. He woke up with a swollen head and 2 front teeth missing. He found and cradled Vestal, who was unconscious and who subsequently regained his senses in a local hospital. Both men had been beaten beyond recognition by a group of unnamed thugs. Local police launched an investigation but faced difficulty in identifying the suspects as the attack had taken place in an area without surveillance cameras. Tristan maintained that they hadn't provoked the assailants in any way and suspected the attack was rooted in hatred towards them for being gay. The couple continued to recuperate in London, and a GoFundMe page was set up in their name to help pay for their treatment. Within less than a month, it rose to over $7,500. If you missed our video on when vacations go wrong, then we have that one lined up for you right after the final listing. Stay tuned if you'd like. Number 1. Matthew and Karen Turner. While visiting South Africa, Matthew and Karen Turner, both in their 30s, were staying at the luxury Hluleka Nature Reserve in the country's Eastern Cape province. On September the 17th of 2019, the couple were in a self-contained lodge on the beach. At about 3 a.m., 2 men, armed with knives, broke into their chalet. They stabbed Karen and Matthew multiple times during what would later be suspected to have been a robbery gone wrong. Karen, who was 3 months pregnant and had celebrated her birthday the previous day, suffered devastating injuries. Matthew was stabbed in the stomach but managed to fight off his attacker. He reportedly tried to chase after the men, but they jumped from a balcony and fled. He then turned back to find that his wife had become unresponsive. Karen died at the scene. The couple's friends were staying in an adjacent chalet and they were awoken by the commotion. The last thing that Matthew remembered before collapsing was unlocking the door for his friends, who walked in to find a bloodbath. Matthew survived and underwent surgery for his wounds in the aftermath. Local investigators took statements from witnesses and gathered evidence but couldn't identify the perpetrators. In October of 2021, the authorities offered a reward of around $5,000 for information leading to the men's arrest. Number 7. Miriam Built. A young German woman named Miriam Built went on a backpacking trip through Thailand by herself. During the spring of 2019, the 27-year-old had been staying in the city of Pattaya when she decided to ferry out to the nearby island of Koh Shik Chong, located off the country's southeastern coast. Shortly after her arrival on April the 7th, Built was approached by a local man who was later identified as Runakorn Romruan, aged 24. He initiated a conversation with the young woman before allegedly asking to engage in intimate relations with her. Built emphatically rejected his proposition and then attempted to leave. As she did so, however, Romruan followed closely behind. He would later reveal to investigators that once he eventually caught up to the tourist, he pinned her to the ground and assaulted her. In an effort to prevent the victim from reporting the abuse to the authorities, Romruan fatally struck her over the head with a brick and concealed her body under a pile of rocks and leaves on a secluded hillside. Not long after, a tourist reportedly contacted local police upon noticing that Romruan's clothes were covered in blood. Officers searched the area close to where the man had been spotted and eventually discovered Built's hidden remains. Romruan was then taken into custody, and after 4 hours of interrogation, he confessed to assaulting and murdering the young vacationer while he was intoxicated on unspecified illegal substances. It was reported that during his murder confession, the suspect had actually reenacted the crime for investigators at the police station. In July of 2019, Romruan was sentenced to death. Number 6. The Sharp family. In March of 2018, Kevin and Amy Sharp from Creston, Iowa, took their 2 children on a vacation to Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The family had reportedly arrived in the country on the 15th of the month and was staying at a rental condo unit in the coastal town of Tulum. Amy's mother later told investigators that the final communication she'd had with her daughter occurred on the same day as their arrival at the condo. Relatives in the Sharps' hometown began to suspect that something might have happened to the family after they'd failed to return from their trip the following week. The family was officially reported missing on March the 23rd, 2 days after they were scheduled to go back home. Mexican officials ordered a welfare check at their rental property, at which point local officers made the horrifying discovery that the entire Sharp family had passed away inside the unit where they were staying. In the days that followed, reports surfaced that the American tourists had succumbed to the inhalation of toxic gases, and the condition of their remains suggested that they'd been dead for anywhere between 36 and 48 hours prior to being discovered. On April the 4th, the lead investigator on the case, Christopher Martinez, revealed during an interview with the Des Moines Register that the Sharps' official cause of death had been established as asphyxiation from propane inhalation. It was also reported that the deadly gas had been emitted by a faulty water heater that had rusted in the humid Caribbean climate. Number 5. Enzo and Daniela del Matzo. A Miami Beach couple was jailed during a family vacation to Hawaii in August of 2021. According to criminal complaints filed by the state, Enzo and Daniela Matzo were arrested after it was discovered that they'd falsified COVID-19 vaccination cards for themselves and their children in order to gain entry onto the island. On August the 11th, they were stopped by an airport screener who felt that the vaccine cards belonging to the couple's children were suspicious. Aged 5 and 4, the children were too young to have been inoculated by any of the 3 vaccines that had been approved for use in the US, making it impossible for their respective vaccination cards to be valid. It was also discovered that the parents had forged their own cards, and they were thus found to be in violation of the state's safe travels rules, which led to them being placed under arrest. The Matzo couple was cited $8,000 and ultimately posted bail. Subsequent reports pointed out the rather ironic fact that full vaccination wasn't even a requirement for them to enter Hawaii. The state's pandemic mandates at the time stipulated that travelers could alternatively present a negative COVID-19 test taken 72 hours before a trip. Number 4. Zach Davis. On January the 3rd of 2022, Cheyenne Floyd, one of the stars of MTV's show Teen Mom, flew into LAX airport in Los Angeles, California after a vacation to Mexico with her fiancé and children. As they made their way through the terminal, the couple were reportedly stopped by customs officials who'd found multiple outstanding warrants for Floyd's partner, 29-year-old Zach Davis. He was consequently taken into custody, although subsequent reports suggested that he was released a short time later. The warrants for Davis's arrest had reportedly stemmed from alleged probation violations in connection to theft and driving under the influence. In the incident's aftermath, neither Floyd nor Davis made any mention of the latter's legal troubles on social media, and instead uploaded several photographs that had been taken during their trip to Mexico. Number 3. Joseph and Emily Fallazzo. In October of 2021, Joseph and Emily Fallazzo took a camping trip to Vermont to celebrate their 1-year wedding anniversary. The couple, who lived in Northfield, New Hampshire, rented out an Airbnb in the popular ski resort town of Bolton. On October the 16th, Joseph reportedly told his wife's family that she'd disappeared after the couple had gotten into an argument in their live-in camper that afternoon. 2 days later, the family officially reported Emily missing to the authorities. According to a police affidavit, Joseph ultimately confessed to murdering his wife while being interviewed by investigators. The man also reportedly revealed that 12 to 15 hours after fatally shooting her inside their camper, he'd proceeded to dismember Emily's corpse and placed her body parts in 8 large trash bags. Vermont State Police subsequently obtained a warrant to search the couple's Chevrolet Express, at which point they came upon the garbage bags that Joseph had described in his confession. When officers found the bags hidden in the camper's bathroom, one of them had been left open and a severed human leg without a foot attached to it was reportedly visible inside. Joseph was charged with first-degree murder in connection to his wife's death, although he'd been exceedingly transparent with the police regarding his involvement in the violent crime. He ultimately entered a plea of not guilty during his arraignment at the Vermont Superior Court in Burlington on the morning of October the 20th. Number 2. Abigail Bieber. In January of 2022, a group of deputies from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office in Florida took a vacation to the coastal city of St. Augustine. 2 of the officers on the group trip were identified as Detective Daniel Layden and Deputy Abigail Bieber, who were romantically involved at the time. On the night of January the 29th, some of the other deputies reportedly heard the couple engaged in a heated argument in their room at the vacation rental home where the group was staying. At about 10 p.m., the shouting match was abruptly punctuated by the sound of gunshots. Following the gunfire, multiple witnesses later detailed how they'd seen a few of the vacationing deputies evacuating people through a second-story window. They also reportedly called for the gunman to exit the room with his hands on his head. Local law enforcement were eventually dispatched to the scene, and it was then discovered that both Bieber and Layden had succumbed to gunshot wounds inside their room. In the shooting's wake, it was reported that Bieber, aged 30, had aspired to become a detective within the Criminal Investigations Division's Special Victims Section. On February the 2nd, the slain deputy's body was escorted to her home in Clearwater by the motor unit of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. Number 1. Scott Hapgood. While vacationing with his family on the Caribbean island of Anguilla in April of 2019, investment banker Scott Hapgood was involved in a deadly altercation with a hotel employee. The 44-year-old Connecticut man would later tell investigators that on the day of the incident, he'd gone back to his hotel room after spending the afternoon at the pool with his family. His 3 children, aged 14, 12, and 9, returned to the room shortly thereafter. Hapgood reportedly heard a knock at the door a few minutes later. When he opened it, the man on the other side, a hotel worker named Kenny Mitchell, stated that he was there to fix a broken sink in the family's room. Although Hapgood hadn't reported a faulty sink, he allowed 27-year-old Mitchell into their room regardless. He would later attribute the decision to the fact that he was wearing an official hotel uniform. Moments after walking inside, Mitchell allegedly brandished a knife and demanded money from the holidaymakers. Hapgood then grabbed the man's wrist in a reported attempt to wrestle away the weapon, leading to an all-out brawl that spilled into the bathroom. Hapgood's children rushed to find help and eventually returned to the room with other hotel employees. By that time, Hapgood already had Mitchell restrained and was allegedly holding him down by the neck. The police weren't called to the scene for nearly 40 minutes, at which point Mitchell was taken to a hospital and later pronounced dead. It was initially postulated that the extended period in which the hotel worker had been deprived of medical care had contributed to his passing. Anguillan authorities subsequently charged Hapgood with manslaughter. A toxicology report released in August of 2019 revealed the presence of cocaine and other substances in Mitchell's system, and it was thus concluded that the man's death had been caused by a drug overdose. In November, Hapgood refused to return to the island for a preliminary court hearing and was thereupon considered a fugitive from justice in Anguilla. Following an inquiry into the situation, Anguillan officials determined that there was enough evidence for Hapgood's prosecution on the manslaughter charge to be continued, despite the seemingly definitive piece of exculpatory evidence provided by the toxicology report. Thanks for watching. Would you go on an all-expenses-paid cruise around the world knowing there was a 50% chance you'd end up stranded on a deserted island? Let us know in the comments section below.